Today is the 7th of January and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm at another member's house here in Kibbutz Givat Chaim Meuchad, and I'm with my old friend Reuven Lichtner. Here we are, say hello.
That's me.
That's you, okay. And this is a guy, I mean, if I am old, this guy is, I don't know, ancient? Ancient.
Yeah.
Okay.
And mausoleum piece.
He's 94 years old.
No
and,
kidding.
Yes.
Yes.
And in very good health. You see, he doesn't wear any eyeglasses like I do. And he exercises, I think, every day. He walks around the kibbutz.
That's right.
And he keeps his hands and his mind working almost every day. He goes to play the piano in the kibbutz clubhouse. And that's absolutely fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to Reuven about how he got to kibbutz, where he came from, what he thinks about kibbutz today. And to help me with all of this, I've written a few questions.
All right. So should have written down also the answers.
Yeah, the answers. Anyway, look, I believe that every man has his story. And I'm going to start with Reuven. Tell me, Reuven, although we've known each other for 40 years since I came here in 1981, and we worked together in the orange orchards.
That's right.
That's right. I've known you, and we've been friendly, but I haven't really asked you details about your life and your background. So let's start with the question. You're 94 years old. Where were you born?
Oh, I was born in Vienna, Austria.
Yes.
Yes. And I lived there until the age of 10.
I see.
When Hitler came around.
I see.
And the whole family managed to escape into Italy.
I see.
And in Italy, we sort of survived here and there for the whole period of the war, and afterwards also. Altogether, I lived in Italy for 11 years, and then the family decided to emigrate to Brazil. So we went to Brazil, we made a new living there. And I lived in Brazil for 9 years, working my way together with my parents, build up a new house, a new home, a new way of life. And then I tried it for a while in the United States of America. I went there to see what the new life of the Western world was really like, what I was aiming to achieve. And I found out that it's not to my liking at all. So after a year and a half in the United States, I had to decide what to do next.
How old were you then?
Oh, I was already, well, if you figure it out, with all the years I spent around there, I was already 30 years old.
I see.
And to go back to Brazil didn't make any sense, because I just left there. And to stay in the United States, I didn't want to stay there, because I just didn't like the way of life there. I found it superficial, lacking culture. It's just the real chase after the dollar all the time, and keeping up with Jonas, and all those cliches about America are true, or were true at that time. I don't know how it is today. So I decided what next. And then I discovered again my ideological, from the point of social and economic point of view, tendency towards the ideas and ideologies of sharing and share alike, of cooperation and so on. And I knew that that was to be found on a kibbutz.
Okay, that's absolutely fantastic, because I didn't realize that you'd moved around from Austria to Italy, and then to South America, and then to the United States. So first of all, the first question that I think of, how many languages do you speak?
Oh, I don't know. I used to speak 5 or 6 languages. But since I went to the kibbutz, I speak mostly Hebrew. And unfortunately, if you don't use a language, you forget it.
That's right. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yes. And so I mostly speak, today I speak Hebrew and I speak English. And I manage very well in German or in Portuguese. And if I had to go get along in France, I could only manage French. And of course Spanish, which is very similar to Portuguese and Italian. Italian, of course, is for me like a second language, because I lived there for 11 years. I went to school there. And that's it about.
Okay, well that's fantastic. I think I totaled 6 or 7 languages there. Well, you know, this is an amazing thing for people abroad, to hear somebody speaking 6 or 7 languages, whereas most of the Anglo-Saxon English-speaking world, they know 1 language, at most schoolboy French or something like that.
Yeah, well, it is an old joke already from my grandmother, that the British tourists would only speak English.
That's
and
very,
they would
very
sit
true.
in the restaurant that I want a steak.
Well, that's right. Well, look.
What do you call it? The garçon.
Okay.
The garçon would understand, of course.
Oh, the waiter.
The waiter
in the
would
restaurant.
know what they wanted, yeah. But the British wouldn't move. They would say steak, and then they got it.
Well, the British and the Americans are well known for only speaking 1 language. But I, being born in England, but being born in Liverpool, raised in Liverpool, I speak 2 or 3 languages. One is the English language. One is what we would call the English dialect of Scouse. And the other language I speak is rubbish. Anyway,
that's a very common language.
So this is not about me, this is about you. Tell me, let me go back to the time you were raised and educated for your first 10 years in Austria.
Right.
Where in Austria?
In Vienna.
In Vienna.
In Vienna, yes.
And Vienna is known as a very cultured capital.
That's true.
And a very high level of education and Western European manners, I think.
Yes.
Yes. What are your memories from Austria?
My memories as a child, you have to understand that I lived in Vienna from the age when I was born until the age of 10, half past 10, let's say, so even quite 11, 38. So my memories of that time are memories of a schoolboy at the most. But
yes, go on.
But my family was striving to feel like better people, besser Mensch, as they used to say.
To be a better person.
A better person, yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, in our home, there was always music, classical music. My mother was a music teacher, a piano teacher.
I see.
And she was a singer. My father also was a singer.
Wow.
So in home, the entertainment was music, classical music.
See. And what was your father's work?
Oh, my father was working in a, what do you call it?
Don't tell me in Hebrew. Or tell me in Italian, I won't understand.
Confectionery?
Confectioner. A confectioner, yes. Making cakes and...
No.
Sweets,
No,
candies?
close.
Oh, sorry, okay, so he worked in the schmatter trade.
Not in the trade, but in the making it. He was
So he
managing an outfit who was furnishing clothes for the higher society.
That's nice.
Yes.
Okay, so when the Germans took over Austria in the Anschluss, that was
March
in
1938.
1938.
Yes.
So you were still at school.
I was still at school.
Now let me ask you something. Being at school, were you at a Jewish school?
No, I was in the public school.
And did you ever feel any anti-Semitism?
Oh yes, antisemitism in Austria was a given thing.
I see.
It was eradicated in the people.
I see.
I
see.
A few hundred years of Catholic instruction. Austria was a Catholic nation,
Mm-hmm.
And
the whole
I don't want to
business
go
of
into
the...
it. I mean, in my opinion, and my feelings, and my experience, the Catholic Church had always a grudge against the Jewish people, a sort of inferiority complex, because after all, the Christian faith is an outcrop of the Jewish faith.
That's right. That's right.
and Jesus himself was a Jew.
But anyway, so
anyhow, as soon as Austria was included into Germany, all the Jewish students in public schools were expelled from the schools, and had to finish the school year in one school for all the Jewish children somewhere out on the outskirts of Vienna.
So how long did it take your parents to decide, from the time of the Anschluss, the Germans coming into Austria, how long did it take them to decide to leave the country?
Didn't take much. I mean, as soon as the Anschluss was completed, and it took less than 24 hours.
I see. So you packed your bags overnight.
So, no, we didn't pack our bags. We started trying. Our family, my parents, started trying, like all the other Jews, or most of them, to find a place where to go.
Yeah.
Which wasn't easy, because all countries in the world, no country in the world was ready to accept Jews just like that. It was very difficult to get a visa, what they call it, an entry permit, into England, into America, into France, into Switzerland, all the Italy, all the surrounding countries from Austria or Germany, where the Jews were trying to run away, to save themselves.
Yeah.
So my parents spent months from March until August, trying to get a visa to get somewhere, which we did, and they didn't succeed.
So in fact, it was August 1938. Yeah.
August 1938, we decided that my mother had a sister who was living in Italy, in Rome. She was married to an Italian. I suppose she also had already Italian citizenship. But anyhow, we managed to get an exit visa with the excuse that we are going to visit my aunt in Rome. And with that excuse, we also got an entry visa into Italy.
I see.
A visitor's visa.
It
was good for 6 months.
I see.
So we got to Italy, and then we tried to renew every time this permit of residence in Italy. And very soon it came to the point where the Italian authorities told us, you can't. You got to get out of here. You got to get back to Austria. But for us, going back to Austria meant certain death.
Of course,
we
yes.
knew it already.
Already 6 months, you were already well into 1939,
yes.
before the outbreak of the war in
Yes.
September 1939.
That's right. But we knew already my grandfather, my mother's father, who was left behind in Vienna because he had no passport.
I see.
He was a remnant of the Polish, and not only Polish, but many Jews and non-Jews who were living in Austria at the time of World War I.
I see.
And when Austria was dismembered, and all those states, the Balkans and Yugoslavia and so on, and Poland were created, which were former part of the Austrian Empire, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire.
Habsburg Empire.
Yes. So all of a sudden, these people had to decide whether they wanted to be Hungarian, Polish, Romanian, or Austrian. And most of them didn't care. So they remained nothing. They were what you call it, stateless.
Stateless, no passport.
No passport. Which was all right as long as Austria was Austria. But when the Germans came in, all of a sudden the Jews had to go somewhere. They had no passport. They had they couldn't do anything.
So what do you know about, first of all, the rest of your family or your grandparents who were left in Austria?
Well, there's also my grandfather and an uncle, my father's brother.
I see.
He managed to get his children out to the United States, but he was left behind with his wife, and he was deported.
Deported. Do you know?
Yeah, he finished somewhere in Poland in some ghetto.
I see.
My grandfather, they made the same thing. In 1939, they all were deported and lost.
I see. And you have no idea?
No, perhaps they were I don't know, in any kind of ghetto there.
I see.
They were exterminated. I mean, they were elderly people already.
Of course.
They couldn't last long there.
I see. I didn't ask you, do you have any brothers and sisters?
I do have a brother who is died already. He went with us to Brazil. He was with us in Italy.
I see.
And he went first to Brazil. He managed to get an entry visa somehow. And he managed also to get a permanent residence there. And after a year of permanent residence, he had the right to bring over his parents.
I see.
So he managed to get our parents into Brazil.
I see. So how long did you actually stay as a family in Italy?
11 years.
11 years in Italy?
11 years, yes.
I see. When you got to Brazil, you were already a young man in your early
21,
20s.
22, yes.
Yeah. So what did you do in Brazil?
In Brazil, I went to work.
What work?
Oh, in commerce. The first job was sort of a stock boy in a business. Had two big outlets in São Paulo, and then I went to work for an importer of jewelry, yes, for a few years, and then I got the idea of seeing what's going on in the United States. So I applied for a visa.
So let me work it out. You were in your 20s, and what year did you start thinking about going to the United States?
But I mean, I was working in Brazil. I was not getting rich. I was working. I was making a living. I was living with my parents still, but I didn't see a bright future there. So I thought perhaps in the United States it would be easier or better. So I applied for an immigrant's visa in the United States.
You just made me think about something of a young guy working in a foreign country in his 20s. What was your social life?
Oh, it was okay. I mean, I got to know people there, Brazilians, and other immigrants. I mean, Brazil was at the time a country of immigrants. Plenty of Italians there. My brother was working for a time in the representative of Olivetti in São Paulo.
Olivetti,
a big Italian outfit.
I remember once I had an Olivetti typewriter.
Yes. Yeah. So there were Italians working there, and my brother got friends with them, and there was already an Italian club in São Paulo, where they used to go dancing on Sundays. So he got in there, and I got in there with him, and so on. We had friends, local friends.
So
we didn't contact the Jewish community at all.
I see.
We were never observant Jews. We didn't live in Vienna, and of course not in Italy during the fascist time and so on. And we're living more with the local population.
I see. So you went to the United States when you were about, what, 30?
Yeah. 29, 30, something like that.
And how long again did you stay in the United States?
Oh, a year and a half only.
A year and a half. And then by that time you started thinking, as you said before, that in fact the lifestyle there didn't fit the way you wanted to see yourself.
That's right.
I see. So how come you, from the United States, did you decide that Israel would be the place? Or
No, Kibbutz.
Kibbutz. You thought of Kibbutz first before...
well, I knew that the Kibbutz are in Israel, but it's not that Zionism was my motive, but the idea of the social life, the form of life of a kibbutz.
You know, this is very, very interesting. I didn't realize that we had that in common. That I won't go into my history, but by the age of 16 or 17, I decided that kibbutz was the best way of life for me.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you go about coming to Israel and getting to a kibbutz?
Oh, I just went to the Jewish agency in New York.
I see.
And told them I want to go to Israel.
I see.
So they were very happy about it.
They were happy? What did your parents...
I contacted the Hashomer Tza'ir.
I see. So that's...
They sent me to the Jewish agency.
I see.
Because the Hashomer Tza'ir was interested in sending me to a kibbutz.
I see. So Hashomer Tza'ir as a pioneering Zionist youth movement.
Whatever, immigration. I mean, I wasn't youth anymore. I was almost 30 years old.
I see. So you couldn't join the youth movement.
But they were happy to get me. They found very quickly. They found a kibbutz which was interested in taking me in.
I see. So what was that kibbutz?
That kibbutz was supposed to be, what's his name? The Wadi Ara, the beginning of Wadi Ara.
Yes. I know the kibbutz at the beginning of Wadi Ara, which is about a quarter of an hour drive from here. Kibbutz. Well, anyway, we'll skip that.
Yes, that kibbutz, yes. But that's a little story which I can't. So I went to a Jewish agency. The Jewish agency was ready, of course, to send me to pay my trip to Israel on a ship.
So they paid for your passage.
I suppose they paid for me. I didn't pay. I didn't have the money.
Yeah.
So I went aboard the ship, and. On the ship, there was a group of half a dozen young people going to Israel to a kibbutz on the basis of 6 months study of Hebrew.
So
the
to go
kibbutz
to a
kibbutz-
Hebrew course, which we call an ulpan,
An ulpan.
they were going to
exactly.
an ulpan, and in an ulpan, then and now I think you work half day in the kibbutz,
right.
and you study Hebrew half
That's
day.
right. That's right. That's exactly what they were
see.
doing. So I found it was a good way for me to get into the life in Israel, because I didn't know Hebrew and I didn't know.
No, but
That's the
anyway,
way-
with your talent for languages, you
I
could
don't know.
have picked it up in a week.
So I figured, I asked them what kibbutz are they going.
I
So they
see.
told me Mayan Tzvi.
Mansfield, which is half an hour from here along the Mediterranean coast on a hillside overlooking the beautiful Mediterranean.
Oh, yes. So I figured, well, let's see what I can do. I went to Mayan Tzvi myself and told them, look, I'm a new immigrant. I came as an immigrant.
Mhm.
I'm a new immigrant and I would like to join your Ulpan, this
Yes, the Hebrew course.
Hebrew course, yes. So they were very happy to have me, and they managed. They had to get the permission from the Jewish agency to take me in, which they got, because everybody was happy to help a new immigrant.
I see. So how
So
long?
I went to Mayan Tzvi, and I took the course of 6 months in Mayan Tzvi, and.
How long did you actually stay in the kibbutz? Just for the Ulpan course?
Mayan Tzvi, yes, they didn't have a room for me, and when the course came to an end, they advised me about several kibbutzim, which, in their opinion, would be interested in taking me in as a member. So I went to visit all these 3 kibbutzim.
I see.
One of them was Givat Chaim Meuchad.
I see.
Our neighbors.
By that time, what year was that?
61.
61. So that
60. I
60.
came to Israel on April 20th, 1960.
I see. So then,
And I did Ulpan from April until November.
I see.
And in November or October, I started looking for a kibbutz which would take me in. And by November, beginning of November, I moved into kibbutz Givat Chaim Meuchad.
Okay, so kibbutz Givat Chaim Meuchad is our, let's call it sister kibbutz nowadays, over the road from here, another couple of kilometers away. But in 1960, that was already about 10 years after the split between the original kibbutz Givat Chaim, which was affiliated with the Meuchad party, and the Ichud on the other side.
Yeah, well, I didn't know a thing about this.
Okay.
I didn't care at that time.
I see.
I just wanted to find a kibbutz which would take me in.
I see.
And
anyway,
Givat Chaim were very happy to take me in, and I spent a year there.
I see. And what was your impression of Givat Chaim Meuchad in the early 60s? After 6 months in Mayan Tzvi, where did you work? What were the people like?
I was working in winter. I worked in the factory, and during the summer I worked in the bananas.
Like me. In the Ganyabet, I worked 5 years in the bananas.
I worked for half a year in the bananas in Kibbutz Givat Chaim Meuchad. And I mean, I was happy. I was single. I was young.
And young people there, young men and young women.
Yeah, it was a pleasant life. I mean, you worked hard, and the housing wasn't there wasn't a luxury in it, but I didn't need much.
That's right. That's right.
But while working in the factory in the winter...
What was the factory?
Oh, the factory was mostly the production of orange juice.
I see. So it was the original pre-GATT factory.
Yes,
GATT factory,
which
factory is in fact based in our kibbutz here in the Meuchad.
Yeah, they started here before the split.
I see.
The kibbutz, but the factory was one of the the first experiments of industry, kibbutz industry.
I see.
And it struggled for many years to keep afloat. But in the end, it succeeded. It became a big factory. It was eventually was sold to or taken over by Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola and Carlsberg.
It's the same.
The same
Carlsberg
company.
belongs to Coca-Cola also.
Yeah, I see. Anyway, this is already skipping many years forward into the 1990s and into the 2000s. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And anyhow, there I met my wife, which was living on Kibbutz Givat Chaim Meuchad.
I see.
But also was working in the factory. The factory was a joint venture. After the split,
yes,
the factory was started by Kibbutz Givat Chaim. Kibbutz Givat Chaim.
The original
Kibbutz Givat Chaim.
Which is this Kibbutz Meuchad.
Here, yes. Which in the early 50s, there was a political split in the Kibbutz movement. And it came to such critical moments that several kibbutzim, the population split up.
Even the families.
Even the families, yes.
There was a big ideological battle, if you want to call this,
yes,
between those who supported the Meuchad movement and those who were, in my mind at least, in the Ichud, were perhaps more liberal.
They were more liberal, yes, and they were more, they supported Ben Gurion, while the Meuchad supported, what's his name?
Meuchad Tabenkin? Tabenkin, yes.
Tabenkin.
I see.
So they split. So the Kibbutz Givat Chaim also split more or less 50-50.
I see.
So the smaller 50, which was 49-6 something.
Yes.
Yes, they went over the road and started a new kibbutz, which took the same name, but with the addition of the name of the movement, Ichud. They were Givat Chaim Ichud, and this kibbutz remained Givat Chaim Meuchad.
I see. You know, many people, they ask me a question. They say, what is the difference nowadays between the Kibbutz Givat Chaim Meuchad and Kibbutz Givat Chaim Meuchad? And I tell them, over the road, that's where the intelligent people live. Anyway,
so I met this my wife, my first wife. Mm-hmm. And when we decided to get married, there was a question whether she would move over to Ichud, where I was staying, or whether I would move in here where she was staying.
You know, Reuven, I keep finding more and more similarities and parallels between us, because I was originally in the Gan Bet as a member for 11 years, and my wife was born here in the Meuchad, and the question was, you know, who would move? But I was outnumbered already. She was a divorcee with 3 boys, so 4 against 1. I didn't have much say.
Then also my wife already had a daughter from her previous marriage.
I see.
Which was going to school here, and the idea was that it wouldn't be convenient for her to move over to the hood. The girl had to change school and a new friend and so on, and better to stay here. For me, it was more or less the same. I didn't care much which way, so I moved over here, and since then I'm here, since 1960, November 1960.
60, okay. So when you moved here, did you continue working in the factory?
No, November 61.
61. So did you continue working in the factory, in the fruit juice factory?
During the first winter, I will continue working in the factory, and then they sent me, they worked in the summer, they sent me over to work in Pardes, in the orange groves, the orange plantation, and since then I worked there for over 30 years.
I see.
In the orange plantation, I installed a new irrigation system all over, more adequate and to those times. my times.
So at one stage you became the manager of the orange groves, I
I
presume.
I didn't become the manager. For a short time, when there was a lapse between one manager and another, I would run the place intermittently. But I didn't care to be a manager because I didn't like to tell people what to do.
I see.
I was a bad manager.
Okay.
I was a bad manager. I mean, we were all equals. I mean, that's the basic kibbutz idea. We are all equals. Yes, the director of the factory was getting the same salary or whatever,
budget.
which I was getting as a humble worker on the line.
I see.
Yes. So I mean, I didn't feel like telling the people working in Pardes, you go do this and you go do this and so on.
I see. So you.
No, it wasn't for me to be a manager.
Okay, I understand. I understand. So already we're into the 60s. You came here at the end of 1961.
Yes.
And during that time, Kibbutz Givat Chaim Meuchad was actually relatively close to the border with the Jordanians, on the West Bank.
Yes.
Were there any problems, for example, with Arabs during that time?
No.
Well, I'm not talking about Arabs. I'm talking about infiltrators or.
No, not the Givat Chaim. No, but there were other kibbutzim or settlements near the border, like Magal.
I see.
They had the troubles there.
I see. So that brings us to, let's say, May 1966 or May 67 with the incident of the Syrian MiGs, the 6 Syrian MiGs over the Sea of Galilee being shot down, and then the Egyptians moving into the Sinai Peninsula and taking over Sharm el-Sheikh and blockading Eilat.
Yes.
Okay, and at the same time, the Syrians started bombarding from what was the Syrian heights, the Golan Heights, onto the Chula Valley. Okay, so where were you, for example, with regards to, did you do any military service?
Well, of course, the military, Israeli military didn't forget me. Very soon they called me, come here, come do some military service. But at the age of 31, 32.
And again, this is another similarity because I also served from the age of 28 to 30.
But I didn't.
Okay.
I was taken in for 2 weeks basic training.
Yes.
Yes. They give me a rifle and start shooting. And then I used to be called up every year for military service.
Well, what rifle did they give you?
Oh, those Czech rifles.
Exactly. I also got the Czechy rifle, a Mauser from World War I.
Yes.
I mean, you know, we used to call it a Macnac, a Makel Neged Klum, a stick against nothing.
Yes.
I see. So
well, I went into the 60 war with one of those.
I
Although
see.
I didn't do much shooting.
I see. So you were called up during the 6-Day War, like more or less every other guy.
Everybody was, yeah. I was lying there on the hills here, not far from here, on the hills with the Jordanian border.
I see.
The Jordanian border. We're lying there in some ditches.
Mm-hmm.
Which were, and we lie there for a few days until the situation was very clear already. Very soon, the Arab armies were routed all over, and I don't know. We did some occupation service in some areas of the
West Bank.
Of the West Bank, and then finally went home.
I see.
Military service was not much eventful. I mean,
I see. So in the June 1967, immediately after that, as opposed to nowadays, most of the Western world supported Israel, and there was a huge influx of foreign volunteers.
Yes.
Overnight, literally, I think 5 or 10,000 in 1967.
Yes.
So the volunteers come to work with you in the orchards.
The volunteers, yes. There was an influx, a very great, steady influx of volunteers into Kibbutz Givat Chaim. For some reason, the Kibbutz became known very soon in all those organizations, especially in Denmark and Sweden.
The Dakiv and Sveikiv.
Yes.
And the Kibbutz volunteers,
Yes.
Kibbutz volunteer desk, I know,
Yeah,
yes.
and the first volunteers from those countries, when they went back home, did a very good job in proselytizing.
Yes,
in
publicizing.
Publicizing, yes, and having good memories of Kibbutz Givat Chaim, so they were coming in by the dozens and by the 20s. Sometimes we had much more people here than we needed.
I see.
And so we were working. They were working in the orchard, in all the places. They're picking oranges and everything else. And the youth, the kibbutz youth, and the volunteers, they had a very good time. I was already married and had a son of my own.
Well, I'm sure all of the ex and previous volunteers from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even in a few in the 90s now will be very, very happy to hear the fact that, in fact, they were appreciated in the kibbutz.
Yes, oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yes.
I see. Okay, so perhaps in another video of this channel, I'll talk a lot more about the volunteers. Anyway, let's move forward, because those days in the kibbutz, the situation was different. We were still, in this kibbutz and most kibbutzim, we were still a traditional kibbutz in many ways. But in fact, obviously, with the influx of the volunteers, this also started to change the atmosphere in the kibbutz, particularly amongst the young people. However, let's move forward to the 1980s and the 1990s, when the whole of the kibbutz movement got into very serious economic difficulties.
Yes.
How did that impact, how did that affect Givat Chaim Meuchad?
Well, the thing is that in the late 70s, there was a change in the Israeli government. The left-wing government, which was ruling Israel since its foundation until then, was toppled by a conservative government, which introduced a new economy, which failed terribly.
I see. So that was 1977, Menachem Begin and the right wing. Yes.
Yes. They managed to bring the kibbutz, the national economy, on its knees in very few years. They started a terrible inflation, which reached up to 400% inflation in a year. And everybody was affected, especially the kibbutzim, because the kibbutzim started all kind of enterprises, and all of a sudden they took loans from banks, which with the terrible inflation, all of a sudden they couldn't repay.
I see.
So the kibbutzim were all of a sudden terribly indebted to banks, and that stopped the development of the kibbutzim. Just living to pay the
The debt?
The debt, not the debt, repeat.
The interest.
The interest on the debt.
Yeah.
And carry the debt on. This was, of course, a situation which the young people didn't like. And also having learned about the big world outside of the kibbutz, from all those volunteers coming from Europe and from the States, so they started to leave the kibbutz and look and find their ways in town. And the kibbutz, in a few years, remained without a second generation, a new generation. There were no young people to take over.
That's right. We basically, if I'm looking back then, we were on the way to becoming an old age colony.
Yeah.
When the youth of the kibbutz, those in the 20s, some in the 30s, left en masse.
Yeah.
And we in Givat Chaim Meuchad, from what I remember, in the 90s, we had a debt of 80 million shekels, I think.
Mm.
But we weren't even repaying the debt, we were repaying the interest. It was ridiculous. So on a practical level, how do you remember on a day-to-day level, what was the kibbutz like then? In terms of the amenities, the facilities, food, money, and things like that?
Well, everything was restricted. The kibbutz didn't have any money. I remember I needed to purchase a new refrigerator because the old one I had just didn't work anymore. And I went to the purser and asked for the money to buy a new refrigerator. They said, you can't buy it. You haven't got the money.
So what did you do?
I asked my son, which already had left the kibbutz, to finance me my refrigerator.
I see. And in terms of cash in your hand every month, did you have any money?
You would get 50, that wasn't shekel yet? Yes, it was shekel already. 50 shekel a month.
50 shekels a
As
month,
far as I remember.
which is about $5 a month.
Yeah,
maybe.
something, I think. You could stay home.
Or £5, $6 a month.
You could stay home with the money.
That's right.
That's right.
And you were working at that time in the orchards.
In the orchards, yes.
How did you feel that as a mature man with a wife and a son, you're working hard in the orange orchards, trying to keep the kibbutz going, and yet you yourself were extremely limited and restricted in what you could do or buy or enjoy? How did you feel?
I think I had faith in the kibbutz.
Mm-hmm.
I had faith. I had a contract, a sort of contract with the kibbutz, that the kibbutz would take care of me until my last day.
I see.
And I had faith in the kibbutz. I was sure.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't worry. I was sure I would be taken care of like everybody else on the kibbutz, no matter what my physical situation or normal situation would be, if I could work, if I couldn't work, but I would be taken care of until my last day of life.
I see. So,
like everybody else on the kibbutz. So whatever it would be.
I see. So during the second half of the 90s, we started discussing what are we going to do about the situation?
Yeah.
How are we going to survive? How are we going to renovate ourselves? Already all of the young people, most of the young people had left. And I remember we actually made the change in February 2002. I was then 57, and the average age of the people in the kibbutz was 57. How did you feel about the discussions about the change and what the ideas were to make a change? How did you feel about these year after year of asifot, of discussions?
How did I feel?
I mean, one side said we have to continue with what we're doing and reinforce the work branches. Others said we've got to make a dynamic change and go more towards a liberalization and perhaps even a privatization. How did you react, coming from, let's say, what we can call the old school, from the old traditional kibbutz? How did you feel about the new ideas?
Well, I think I accepted the changes they were proposing and were effectuating as a necessity in view of the fact that the old system doesn't work.
That's right.
Doesn't work anymore.
I see.
We had to do some changes, and we choose to change in that way, that particular way, in as much as we decided that every kibbutz member would have to take care of himself and his family. He would get a salary for his work, and he would have to manage with his salary.
So, in other words, from, let's say, in a way, what I define as a lifestyle determining the economy had to determine the lifestyle, and everybody had to earn their living.
Yeah, that was the big difference. And until then, the kibbutz took care of its members. The kibbutz furnished us clothing and food and housing and health and entertainment and everything, and a little bit of pocket money. And that's what was the way of life of the kibbutz. And then all of a sudden decided, all right, we'll give you a monthly salary according to the work you do, compared to the outside world, and you have to manage to take care of yourself.
So in February 2002, when we made the change, you in fact were, I think, 76 years old. It's 20 years ago. Next month it'll be 20 years. So you were 76. How did you feel about?
I was already
a pensioner.
A pensioner.
Okay, so did you in fact get a pension from the kibbutz?
Yes, definitely. That the kibbutz decided that all those. It was when the kibbutz decided the big change. The kibbutz also before that decided to open pension plans for all its members with those big insurance companies. Only that some members, like me, were already too old to get into one of those pension plans. So for those people like me, who was too old to start a pension plan, the kibbutz decided that the kibbutz would put up a pension.
I see.
So I got, when I finally became a pensioner, I started getting a pension from the kibbutz, and I still get it today.
And was that original pension, was it enough for you to survive and enjoy life?
It was enough from the beginning, yes. And it increased in time, and it is still enough today.
I see. So let's move fast forward 20 years from 2002 until today, January 2021, 22. Yep. Okay. How does the kibbutz help you in your daily life as a pensioner, and how do you feel about the attitude of the kibbutz to you after living most of your adult life and working hard and everything else? How does the kibbutz look after you?
The kibbutz looks after me in the way that there is one person which is in charge of taking care of special necessities, needs of the old or the no,
Health and welfare.
health and welfare and so on.
Yeah.
Yes. As far as money-wise, I manage to live with what I need. I'm a healthy person, I can say.
I agree with you.
my expenses for medicines and so on are very small. And I'm today, I might say, I am regarded as with some special care because I have become the oldest member alive today.
In this kibbutz?
In this kibbutz, yes.
Really? I didn't know.
Yeah, there is one woman which is a bit older than I
Oh,
am.
Tzipora?
Tzipora, okay.
Because I'll tell you why Tzipora. Because I'm going to interview Tzipora next week.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Oh, I see.
But of the men, I am the oldest survivor, the oldest kibbutz member.
I see.
So
well,
everybody knows me and everybody says hello and smiles at me, and I feel very happy, and I am.
I see. Well, you know, this begs the question: to what do you? How can I say? How come you have? What's your secret of your longevity?
Oh, I don't know.
What's your secret? Tell me the secret.
I tell you the secret. Be happy with what you got.
Huh?
Be satisfied with what you have.
I see.
Only what you get.
I see.
Don't start wishing and dreaming always of what the others have. That's what chased me away from the United States. The chase after the competition with the neighbor.
What we call in England keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly.
See. Be happy with what you have, and that's the secret.
So the secret of your longevity is be satisfied, be happy, and have a sense of humor.
If you have it, and if you have a hobby, then take care of your hobby, be happy with it. I play the piano.
You play the piano fantastically. I recorded you yesterday, and I'll also I'll put on this channel the video of you playing the piano, but I won't be able to actually sound the music due to copyright circumstances on YouTube. However, the original with the music I will send to your son.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think you've told us fantastic things about yourself, things that I didn't know about. And again, after 40 years, suddenly I find a commonality with you on many points, whether it's the bananas or how we came to kibbutz and let's say ideology, idealism, or looking for a fantastic community. So all I can say is in Hebrew, Ad 120, up to 120, may you be healthy and well and happy and content. And Reuven, thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you, Toda Rabba. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Hello.